Today. Director Patel, thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to making sure that America is safe again. Thank you for doing that coast to coast and within our cities. I certainly look forward to talking about that and talking about your historic gains in these areas. But I would be remiss if I didn't begin my questioning with you about the horrific events that we have seen over the last week. Obviously, our heart breaks. Not only for Erica and Charlie's two children and for parents and families, but for America and for those of us who knew him, you being chief among those. So just my sincere condolences and thank you for the steps that you and the FBI have taken to make sure that we have someone within custody and we're going to be able to move forward with that. But if you look over the last, since last summer alone, we had 2 assassination attempts on the president. We've had an arson attack on the governor Shapiro there in Pennsylvania. You have the murder of the state representatives, Melissa Hortman and her husband in Minnesota, along with the shooting of State Senator John Hoffman and his wife. Several anti-Semitic attacks, several attacks on Christians that were noted by Senator Hawley. We had the killing of 2 Israeli embassy staffers here in D.C., the June firebombing in Colorado. We could go on, and we saw a culmination, as Senator Schmidt said, with the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk last week. I appreciate you committing to both Senator Hawley and Senator Kennedy, talking about making sure that all that are involved are held accountable. I think that is critically important, and I think that America needs that transparency. I want to read you some words of Vice President J.D. Vance. He said, "If we want to stop political violence like what happened to Charlie Kirk, we have to be honest about the people who are celebrating it and the people who are financing it." My question to you is, in light of Charlie's murder and all of the things that we have just referenced and have been talking about today, what steps is the FBI taking to more aggressively crack down on those who promote, encourage, finance, fund these types of engagements and this type of political violence?
Thank you, Senator, for your kind words. So in terms of how we crack down on the root cause of this violence, for now putting aside the ideological motivations and how they got there, the monetary issue is a real issue. And as I've said before, we follow the money. So we work with our partners at the Treasury Department to trace where the money came from, how these individuals paid for the training they received or the platforms they were using, and also how these individuals collectively got together in whatever groups they were on whatever social media sites they were on, to utilize clickbait to make money
Bingo.
For their ideology. And so to trace all of those, we are using, not just in in Charlie's investigation, but others, lawful process and serving 2703D orders on any entity that is related in any way financially to any of these criminal acts of violence. And we are going to hold them accountable with our partners at the Department of Justice.
Excellent. I would love to stay abreast of that, and just we must get to the bottom of it. We must follow the money. Someone is funding this discourse. Do you believe, obviously there are people here, unfortunately American citizens, that may be engaged in that, but do you also believe that some of this may be coming from overseas?
Yes.
Okay, let's get to the bottom of it and let's make it stop.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask you about the Dobbs decision. So we know that it was leaked in May of 22, and then we had the Marshal Service say we found nothing in January of 23. I find that absolutely mind-boggling, that we can't figure out who leaked that opinion. We know it was done in attempts to undermine the process, and then the intimidation of the justices occurred after that. Tell me what you can do as FBI director to help us get to the bottom of what happened and actually hold someone accountable for their actions.
So I can't speak to what the marshals did and how they conducted their investigation. I can tell you, generally speaking, the FBI has taken over the investigation on the leak because it was such a detrimental leak.
So you commit to getting to the bottom of it?
We are utilizing the full resource of the FBI as we usually do on leak investigations, and we will make sure our results are public at the appropriate time.
We need answers. I want to talk about child sexual exploitation. Thank you for making protecting our youth your top priority. We know that that is the greatest gift that we have. That is our greatest treasure here in the United States, is the next generation. And finally, we have an FBI director that is putting that at the top of his list. Can you tell me the steps and the different initiatives? I've heard you talk about a couple of them. You've mentioned 764 amongst other things. Tell me what you're doing, and specifically, I want to know about when it comes to sextortion. So as a parent who is raising children right now, teenagers, and you're looking at what's happening, whether people are snapping photos and then what's happening online. I have had a number of parents sit in front of me telling me terrible, heartbreaking stories about their children ultimately taking their own life because of being blackmailed. I want to know, what steps are you taking to get to the bottom of that and to absolutely end this? If this were happening in a storefront, Mr. Director, that store would be shut down, no matter where it was, coast to coast, and yet we continue to allow these things to happen, and we've got to have a more targeted approach when we're looking at this. And so what are you doing to protect children, and specifically sextortion?
So in our VCAC initiative, our Violent Crimes Against Children is our umbrella enterprise operations hub for things like Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Not Forgotten and Operation Justice. And in things like that, those are producing the results that I told you about. 1,500 child predators arrested, 300 human traffickers arrested, 4,700 children identified and saved, a 35% increase from year to date last year alone. But specifically on your sextortion question, Senator, that is a problem that we are seeing explode on generative AI in private sector and social media companies. And what we're doing is engaging with NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploiting Children, because this one stat alone should probably cause great pause. They have seen a 1,325% increase in generative AI leading to sextortion and child sexual abuse. That cannot be countermanded by the FBI alone. We have embedded people at NCMEC and have a great partnership with them. But what we need to do is what we did in the month of May, and we're doing it over and over again. We arrested 400 individuals in 1 month and 1 month surge.
Wow,
These individuals have prioritized. The agents and intel analysts have never left that mission. They're doing multiple missions at the same time. That's what the FBI is called upon to do day in and day out, and we won't stop doing two things at once. But we need help from social media companies. We need help from the private sector and the internet service providers that allow this generative AI to be hosted on their platforms. We have got to get a resolution on that with our partners in Congress and the private sector.
Well, we are definitely committed to working on that. I know the people up here, so you let us know what tools you need, and I know we've got several ideas that we look forward to pushing forward. In my remaining 2 minutes, I want to talk to you about your historic results when it comes to crime. In particular, we've seen here in DC just a total transformation. You mentioned earlier 60% down in gun crime, 70% down in carjackings. You said 50% down in homicides, to name a few. We have a success story, and we appreciate President Trump's leadership on all of this. We have a success story in Alabama, where the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, so ALEA, they just marked their 1-year anniversary of the Metro Area Crime Suppression Unit. There in Montgomery, it is a coordinated effort with ALEA, with our Attorney General, with Montgomery PD, and our sheriff, Montgomery County sheriffs. They've seen a 30% drop in violent crime and a 19% drop in overall crime. So it is actually producing results. It's this type of interagency connectivity that I think ultimately is going to lead us to safer cities and safer streets. I know that you are committed to that, committed to working with your partners. You said earlier you've elevated sheriffs and police officers there to the 7th floor. Thank you for doing that. I am grateful for the men and women of Alabama in uniform that have made this happen, and want to know, how is the FBI working to collaborate in these types of ways across our country to make sure that we have even greater success stories to tell?
Well, the collaboration's happening at our Redstone Arsenal in Alabama. We bring 4,000 students through our Redstone Arsenal for training every year. In terms of our future plans, in the next few years, we will bring 13,000 students a year through Alabama's Redstone Arsenal. And by students, I mean FBI employees, I mean sheriffs, I mean police chiefs, I mean cops, I mean intel analysts, because that is their future gem of how we are going to train local law enforcement. And we're so thankful for the dedication of resources to that facility. And I encourage everyone to go down there and take a look, because if you want to see where the FBI is going and how we're going to train the future, it's happening at Quantico and Redstone.
We are very proud of it, and thank you so much for your leadership.
Senator Booker.